Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Maggie. You might notice that some things are different, and we started out with penetrative shots. This is because this is a special curated daily, which means that a few times a year the dailies will be unique because there's something going on. So in this case, this is a daily in honor of Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to all of those who do celebrate it. Where I'm from, it's not really a big thing. But because Thanksgiving is a big thing in a lot of countries, what happens is that the Isaac Daily is going to be curated in a way that kind of resembles it. So in this situation, we start out with penetrative shots, and there's also another aspect of the daily that makes it just a little bit more Turkish, and that's all the hints I'm going to give. Maybe later on I'll tell you what exactly it is, but see if you can notice it. But yeah, just take in mind that it's something to do with turkeys. So what I did on this floor, I had 4 sands and I had 1 bomb, and I was kind of making a power play. Should I use my bomb to try and get an additional sand somehow, so then I would have the chance of getting an arcade on next floor? And I opted to do that just because I felt like it was the right thing to do in that moment, because getting an arcade early on with Maggie is very helpful. We can get the Ivy Bag, which is obviously a very good item for dailies, or if we got the Blood Bag, which is an item that gives us health and speed up, that's also something I would be really looking forward to. And the fact we have Yum Heart, which restores our health on every use, I can also use that to my advantage to actually play the Blood Bank a few more times. So obviously that's a great thing, and I decided to go for it because I think having Blood Banks, having the arcades as Maggie is very valuable in this situation. So that's why I decided to do it. Maybe it was a bit of a risky play, maybe that bomb could have been better used elsewhere, but I think whenever you have bombs that you shouldn't really be stingy with them, you really should use them in a situation that where you think you'll benefit the most from. And thankfully it did work out for us. We managed to get the Blood Bank on this floor, and we actually played the Blood Bank a lot of times, because of Yum Heart and because we just had a lot of health. And we did manage to get the Ivy Bag out of it, which is obviously, like I said, a very good item. At this point, we're basically not starving for any health. And the fact we have the Child's Heart Trinket, which increases the amount of red hearts we get, means we'll be able to use it even more as the run actually continues and goes on. So at this point, everything is looking swimmingly. Only the fact that we are Maggie, we're kind of slow, which is obviously the most annoying thing you can hope for. This is the only thing that's kind of pushing us back. Also, the fact that we didn't get any great items on the first 2 floors, so we're still relatively weak in the sense that we really can't do things. But thankfully, because of penetrative shots, a lot of rooms are actually much easier to deal with, just because we can shoot at multiple enemies at once. So here I'm stuck with a decision. Do I take the Halo, which is obviously I think a very good item, or maybe because I have a lot of money, I'll try to reroll it multiple times and hope to get something really good. So what I decided to do, just because I do have full health, which means I can use the Ivy Bag multiple times, I do reroll the item a bunch of times, and I managed to get Mom's Knife, which is one of the luckiest things that has happened to me in a daily, in a long shot, in a long time. And there's a lot of things that had to go right to just come to this point, which is, I guess, something that not a lot of people would do. So the first thing is we had to use our bomb on the right pots to get that additional scent on the first floor. Then on the second floor, we actually had to be persistent enough and be willing to sacrifice like 2 minutes of our time, which is what I did, to get the Ivy Bag. And then, of course, use the Ivy Bag so many times that we would actually have enough money to play the reroll machine on this floor in this item room. And the fact that we actually even played it, because, like I said, the Halo is a good item enough already. So, of course, like, this might seem like I'm cheating, maybe I knew that the item was there, but, I really don't have an explanation for this, why I decided to do this. But I'm just saying that sometimes when you do risky plays like this, sometimes they're gonna work out and sometimes they won't. But I think in the aspect of how I play, usually, this is a very understandable thing that I have done. I never really risked too much, and I just felt like because our run was weak enough, the Halo wouldn't be able to save it. I feel like the Halo is an item which boosts your run, and boosts it a lot if you're already strong enough, but if you're weak, the Halo won't really do much for you. The only thing that maybe I miss from picking up the Halo is the speed up, which is something that we so desperately need as Maggie, or maybe I desperately need, just because I suck at dodging with her. For some reason, whenever I play Maggie, and whenever I'm stuck in this situation where I have Mom's Knife, and I'm playing as Maggie, and my range isn't super good, I just end up regretting that I'm not faster so I can dodge better. With that said, I also gained a new appreciation for the range stat today, and so usually I don't pay much attention to it, to the point where I don't even pick up most range up items. just like mom's panties and the other mom item, which gives the range. I usually don't pick them up, and not just because, well, obviously because I think the range is so useless, it's not worth picking up, but I actually gained a new appreciation for it today. What happened is, when I was playing as Maggie, of course, besides the fact I'm slow, I can't really use the momentum I have to throw the knife forward, or what you can do usually if your momentum is high enough, you can abuse that to actually shoot more. But because we're naturally slow, that's actually hard to do and pull off with Maggie. So in that situation, it would be actually very useful for us to have the range. And because it seemed like our range was very terribly weak, whenever I was swarmed with enemies, I didn't have the time to actually charge up my knife to its maximum, which means that it was hard for me to kind of lock onto the enemy and just have the knife stay on him for the maximum amount of time. So what I had to do is kind of get close and personal to the enemies, which resulted, of course, in me getting hit a bunch of times, also because the fact we were slow. So I really hope that this run, I really wish that this run would actually have some ways of getting range ups, or maybe shots up, or maybe just more speed. But I guess that's a problem that you always have when you're playing as Maggie. You do have to rely on your speed. There's also a thing I like to call passive avoiding, because what I do most of the time whenever I'm playing as a character, I dodge reactively, which means that I see a shot, I see the attack, and then I adjust my position. And that usually works well enough in most situations if you're fast enough. But if you're as slow as Maggie is, reactive positioning, or maybe reactive dodging, how I call it, is just not good enough, because when the shot actually leaves the enemy, you because our reaction time is quite slow as humans, you actually don't have enough time to get out of the way. And for some people it might work out. Of course, it depends how fast you are. If you're super slow, then you're never gonna get away, or maybe if you're at the speed I am now, some people do have the reaction time to get away from it. But for some attacks, of course, I am able to dodge them, and some attacks I'm not able to dodge them. So what you have to do is kind of passively dodge, which means that you shouldn't rely on seeing the attack and then using your reflexes to dodge it, but you should see where the attacks are coming from and then position yourself appropriately so that they don't even hit you in the first place. And that's not... I try to do that, of course, but it's hard when you're just used to reactive dodging all your life. It's hard to go back to this passive type of dodging. So here you can see that there's only 5 seconds left for me to get to the Hush fight, and I kind of overestimated our speed, I'll be honest. When I entered the last room, I thought I was going to be able to finish it much faster, and I would have if it wasn't for that annoying room that had a lot of hosts that were hiding, which means that they were invincible most of the time. So for that reason, that room took longer than I expected it to take, and what happened is, of course, I entered the room, I tried to clear it, it was just a bit too slow, and just because of our innate slow speed, I was late to the Hush fight by 3 seconds. Otherwise, that's a really wasted opportunity. If I just didn't go to that room, I really thought that I was going to be able to do it and come back, of course, but you never expect to get like that super slow room. But thinking back at it, there are a lot of rooms that would actually set me back. Any room that basically has any hiding enemies, or maybe any room that relies on you waiting for the enemy to come down. And there are a lot of rooms like that, especially in the womb or the utero floor, just because you have obviously have the rooms with where the enemies hide in the floors, and they are hard to get, and you also have the hosts and things like that, which is exactly what happened in our situation. So that was kind of a bummer, but I can't be too mad, just because I did get lucky before and I did manage to get Mom's Knife. I still think I'm in a relatively good position. I can't imagine this run without a Mom's Knife. I feel like if people didn't find this combo, which is, I think, like I said, very rare to do, unless maybe you know what you're doing in advance, then it's gonna be a tricky situation. But at the same time, like I said, I think I did the right things I had to do in order to get to this position. So the Dark Room, which is the last floor, I debated should I explore it, because even though we had the Mom's Knife, I'm not as strong at all. I can't deal with rooms, especially rooms that have multiple enemies, and there are a lot of rooms here that rely on you being actually just super fast. Like in this situation, I had 2 cage boss fights, enemies, in the same room, and when one starts rolling, it's actually, you don't have the time or the capability to get away from his attack, and you can't just dodge fast enough. So what you have to rely on is kind of using your knife in the same way to kill one enemy while still avoiding the other. And that's obviously very hard because our range is low, our speed is low. And not only that, whenever you're facing more enemies at once, you're kind of limited in which direction you can shoot, just because you can only shoot in 4 cardinal directions with Mom's Knife. And a lot of attacks that come from enemies, especially if there's 2 of them, are also coming from the 4 cardinal directions, which means that you're always in the line of fire, and because you don't have enough speed, you can't dodge the attacks that enemies are throwing out to you. But thankfully, what I did, I mean, not thankfully, but what I decided to do is I just said, okay, I'm just not gonna explore the floor because I think I can screw myself a bit too much. It happened before, it happened a lot of times before. So what I'm just gonna do is just enter the Mega Satan fight to try to beat him, because I think I am strong enough to beat Mega Satan, especially at the health I was. And the fact I have the Ivy bag, I have the Yara rune, which means that if enemies drop any Spirit Hearts or maybe Red Hearts, I can duplicate those to just have a bit more health. And I think that the knife is actually a very decent weapon against Mega Satan too, just because his hitbox is so big. You can really guarantee that the knife will stay on him for the maximum amount of time. And really the power of Mom's knife doesn't come from individual hits. The power comes whenever you can stick your knife to the enemy. That's maybe the best way I can put it. Basically, the apex of your arc, not the arc, but the apex of your shot, the knife sits still just for a few seconds, and if you can maximize that time, that's really what deals the most damage. And even if you're not very strong like we are not, we basically didn't have any damage ups except Lump of Coal and 1 pentagram, I think. It's still enough to kind of 2 or 3 shot Mega Satan and get him to the next phase of the fight. So here we're just, you know that the run is not going as well just because we are fighting these enemies, and you usually don't have to fight them at all. Usually just go you skip straight to the angels, the ones we're fighting at now. But yeah, like I said, just the fact that this run wasn't so strong was kind of telling of what's going on. And if you didn't notice, what happened is that every boss fight gave us a turkey, the breakfast item, which looked like a turkey. So that was the theme of this daily, basically get screwed over by only getting health in every boss fight and not getting any usable damage or tears or stats up. This is basically the last point of this fight. Mega Satan on his own isn't very dangerous at all, just because he has a lot of predictable attacks. The only time that is maybe a bit difficult is when he starts spamming his shots, and the shots he spams are sometimes hard to avoid, but usually they are predictable. Sometimes you're gonna end up in a position that's maybe a bit hard to dodge, but whenever we are in that position, we can still use our Ivy bag to get the invisibility frames. And invincibility frames for the Ivy bag, because we hit ourselves with Ivy bag, we don't get any damage reduced or any penalty reduced, and we can still use those invisibility frames to actually dodge the enemy attacks. He did end up hitting us a few times, and we are left with only 1.5 heart remaining, but that doesn't matter. The important part is that we lived and got to the end. So the fact that I actually managed to finish this run quite fast, in the 40th minute, which is much faster than what I usually would do, and I think that actually contributed to our score quite significantly, just because not a lot of people found Mom's knife, and maybe I should have just gone with that strategy and just tried to bolt for the finish. But the time penalty isn't as severe as damage penalty is, so I'm not sure where the trade-off is there. But anyway, we did actually manage to finish 61st, which is a very good score, not something I expected. I think there's a suspicion that I have that Mom's knife actually helped us rank that well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, happy Thanksgiving to all of those who do celebrate it in the upcoming days or whenever it is. And I hope to see you next time.